Half the code in your project doesn't need to exist. That's right, I said it. And one of the worst offenders? The middleman code spell. You know the one. A class that's basically a glorified post-it note, passing calls around without adding any value. Why are we tolerating this dead weight? Why keep something in your code base that's literally doing nothing? Why middleman classes are a massive waste of time, when you might need them, and how to cut them out for good. You're sifting through some code, trying to follow the flow, and you come across a class. You're thinking, okay, cool, let's see what this guy does. You start digging in, you realize it's just passing calls to another class. That's it. Got any tech horror stories you'd like to share? I'll keep them anonymous and add my CTO insights on what could have been done differently. Let me know in the comments or reach out via email. Let's learn and laugh together. Here's an example. What's going on here? Absolutely nothing. The employee service class is just wrapping the employee repository. No validation, no logic, no transformation. It's like a middle manager who shows up for meetings, repeats what their boss said, calls it a day. Why would anyone write this? Probably because service or manager classes feel like they're necessary, even when they're not. Every line of code in your project has a cost. The more you have, the harder it is to maintain, debug, and understand. So if you're keeping pointless middleman classes around, you're basically throwing time and money down the drain. Number one, they add zero value. If all your class does is forward calls, why not just call the target directly? There's no added abstraction, no meaningful logic, it's fluff. Number two, they waste your time. Debugging a problem? Guess what? Now you have to trace through that extra class that does nothing. It's like being on hold with customer service only to be transferred to someone else who can actually help you. Middlemen make your system more brittle. A change in the class they delegate to often means you have to update the middleman too. That's double the work for no reason. There are rare cases where middlemen aren't totally useless. For example, there's the facade pattern. If you're using a middleman intentionally to simplify access to a bunch of complicated subsystems, then yeah, it has a purpose. But remember, this only works if the class is actually simplifying something. Maybe you're setting up a class because you know you'll be adding validation, logging, or other logic soon. But if that logic never shows up, congratulations. You've just made a useless middleman. Or worse, speculative generality. The video about that smell is right here. So let's be clear. Most of the time, you don't need one. Stop fooling yourself into thinking every service class is sacred. If you've identified a middleman, here's how to deal with it. The easiest option, just remove the middleman and call the real class directly. If you must keep the class, make it earn its keep. Add validation, error handling, or business logic. Make it do something useful. If your system is so complicated that middlemen feel necessary, maybe it's time to rethink your architecture, simplify your dependencies, or use meaningful patterns like mediator or facade. Okay, I get it. It's easy to let stuff like this slide. Writing an empty service class feels harmless. Hey, maybe we'll use it later. But every unnecessary class is a burden. It makes your code base slower, harder to maintain, and frankly, it makes you look sloppy. Whether you agree or you think middlemen are misunderstood heroes, I want to hear your side in the comments. Every class in your project should have a purpose. If it doesn't, delete it or make it useful. Your future self and your team will thank you.